This little boat is in troubled waters right now. Today we're talking about the drama surrounding the 3D Benchy, why many are calling for its boycott, how it might be based on misinformation, and what you can print instead if the Benchy is sunk for good. If you've been 3D printing for any length of time, you've probably printed more of these than you care to admit. If you're new to the space and don't know what it is, allow me to explain. It might look like a toy, but this tiny tugboat is in fact a highly sophisticated, purpose-built tool for benchmarking 3D printers. It's got bridges and overhangs, fine features and small text, all designed to push a 3D printer to its limits, seeing where it shines and what its shortcomings are. Is the bottom text illegible? Your first layer might be too close. Is the hull rough? You must not have enough coolant. Is there ringing around the portholes? Try enabling input shaping. But this is more than just a diagnostic tool. Its use is so widespread that it has achieved icon status, becoming somewhat of a mascot for the 3D printing community as a whole, and spawning many derivative works. Giant versions that are actually seaworthy, and tiny versions smaller than a grain of rice. Tall benchies, hollow benchies, sinking benchies, sunken benchies, spider benchies, ghost benchies, wave benchies, bank benchies, and the list goes on. But those days might be over. There are growing calls online to boycott Benchy. But why? And is it possible that it's all one big misunderstanding? To understand what's transpired, we need to go back to the beginning. 3D Benchy, the jolly 3D printing torture test, was released to the world 10 years ago. It was designed by Daniel Noré during his tenure at Creative Tools, a Swedish reseller of 3D printing hardware and software. Strong believers in the open source ethos, Daniel and the team at Creative Tools never intended the Benchy to be a for-profit initiative. It was released for free, first uploaded to Thingiverse in April of 2015 under a Creative Commons license. The return on investment came in the form of printer and filament sales. Their website URL was printed on the bottom of the boat for all to see. Great marketing. Of course, it would be trivial to remove this text and re-upload the model, which is why the particular subcategory of license they chose was so important. CCND, no derivatives. Their website very clearly stated that the Benchy could only be redistributed in its unmodified form. For consistency, they said, but perhaps at least partially motivated by their own self-interest as well. Then in 2018, Creative Tools was sold, and in the restructuring of the company, they withdrew from the 3D printing hardware market altogether. The rights to the 3D Benchy were still among the company's assets, but they no longer had a vested interest in preserving its original form. So when derivative models began to appear online, they went unchecked. This led many to believe that the license allowed derivatives. Until recently, when Creative Tools was acquired by yet another company, the Denmark-based NTI Group. Shortly after, a post surfaced on Reddit. The designer of the glitched out Benchy claimed that their model had been removed from printables for license violations. When they reached out to support, they were informed that all remixes of the Benchy would be removed in the coming days, due to the quote, strict licensing requirements set by the original company, which prohibits any remixes or modifications. They went on to say that they weren't happy with the outcome, but that they must comply with and enforce the licensing terms. So it appears that the new copyright owner, intent on protecting their IP, is putting an end to the fun. They're staking their claim on a symbol that has become ingrained in the fabric of the 3D printing community. Or are they? Amidst the fallout from the initial revelation, a reporter for the 3D printing publication All3DP reached out to Prusa Research to get their take on the situation.
My favorite model, the Benchy. Really? 3D Benchy, yeah, it's nice.
Prusa confirmed that the license enforcement was, quote, prompted by a third party, but they couldn't provide further details. A few days later, they followed up with more information. They said, "We are now in contact with the NTI Group, who identify themselves as the new owners of the Benchy rights. Based on our conversation, they confirmed that they were not the ones reporting the issue. However, we must still act in accordance with the licensing rights. We are currently discussing the matter with them, and if they choose to permit remixes, we will work together to find a sustainable and solid solution moving forward." So that begs the question, who is this mysterious third party that caused such an uproar? With Creative Tools having withdrawn from the 3D printing space prior to the acquisition, it's possible that NTI Group wasn't even aware that they were the new owners of the copyright. It's therefore unlikely that they'd have any commercial interest in striking an iron fist and upholding the no derivatives license. But they might not want to be bothered with the process required to change it. Only time will tell if 3D Benchy is restored as the unofficial mascot of the 3D printing community, or if it's been sunk for good. If it remains with the strictly enforced no derivatives license, controlled by a large corporation, it wouldn't be a good figurehead for a community whose foundation is rooted in the open source ethos. In that case, we'd need to find a new Benchy equivalent to break in and compare our 3D printers. But what would make a worthy successor? To start our search, we should first identify what made Benchy so popular in the first place. 1. It's a quick print, using minimal filament. 2. Its geometry readily reveals print quality issues. And perhaps the most important of all, 3. It's cute. Point number 2 is worthy of further discussion. 10 years ago when this was designed, this would have been considered a challenging print. Print times were on the order of hours, and a perfect result would be unachievable. Nowadays, we're seeing the same model printed in a matter of minutes, with nearly perfect quality. It takes someone with a keen eye for details and a deep understanding of the technology to identify any issues. But it's all qualitative analysis, rather than quantitative. One person's perfect Benchy might look mediocre to someone else. The only way to compare apples to apples is to use numbers. We need a rubric with which to score the results. This was part of the motivation behind the design of the Autodesk Kickstarter FDM benchmark in 2018. With more and more printers launching on Kickstarter, potential backers needed data to make an informed purchasing decision. A quantified assessment of print performance, rather than just a toy boat photographed under flattering light. This benchmark tests for dimensional accuracy, fine flow control, and overhang performance, among others. The finished print is examined and a score assigned for each test. In this way, we can more directly compare results between printers. When this was first released, the cream of the crop printer was the Prusa i3 Mark III, with a score of 22.5 out of 30. The highest score I've achieved with a modern printer was the Cheedy Plus 4, with a respectable 27 points out of 30. So if you're simply keen on characterizing your printer's performance, this is probably the best test you can do. But there's one big problem with this model. Let's see if you can spot it. That's right, it's not cute. Like it or not, cute has become synonymous with 3D printing, at least at the consumer level. It's models like these, rather than the more utilitarian ones, that tend to turn heads and get more people interested in the hobby. So let's use that as one of our search criteria and see what other options exist. The E3D Buggy is a close parallel to the 3D Benchy. It's small, cute, and tests a range of printer performance attributes. It has a similar overall shape, including a license plate with a hashtag of its own. But given that it's designed by E3D, a 3D printing equipment manufacturer, it's perhaps a little too corporate to be our new mascot. If we want to get more literal with the term Benchy, there's this great model that surfaced in the wake of the licensed drama, the 3D Boaty. Pun intended, of course. It tests overhangs, bridging, and top surface quality, as well as bed adhesion, something the original Benchy didn't. Nearing 2,000 downloads in just a few short days, it's a strong contender for Benchy's successor, and you'll be happy to hear that the license permits remixes. Like this extended version, this circular version, this phone stand, or this one with the Rock's face on. And naturally, someone has scaled it up to print at life size. I guess we've really come full circle. Now, if only this was supplied with a scoring rubric, it might just be the perfect test. An oldie but a goodie is the Cali-Cat. Dating back to 2016, it's almost the same vintage as the Benchy. It combines the defined measurements of a calibration cube with the adorable face of a cat. It's a bit of an easier print than the Benchy, but can still give a good sense of how your printer is performing. There's also the Cali-Dragon and the Maker's Muse clearance castle. Two great models that meet all three of the original Benchy criteria. Unfortunately, they're both paid models with license restrictions, but at least the rights are owned by members of the community and not a large corporation. But I'd love to know what you think. Is there a model you'd propose as a worthy successor to the 3D Benchy, a rightful heir to the throne of the 3D printing kingdom? Or perhaps you'd be up for the challenge of designing your own. If you are, I'd implore you to adhere to the criteria that made Benchy so successful in the first place, while also adding the fourth criteria from the Autodesk benchmark test, quantified analysis. I'd love to see them, so send me what you come up with and let me know in the comments down below what you think of this whole situation. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. My name's Taylor, this is YGK3D, and until next time, happy 3D printing.